Nowadays, everyone knows about The Matrix. But when it first debuted in 1999, filmgoers weren't quite sure what they were in for. The movie's blend of such a large existential framework with slick kung fu action scenes elevated the Wachowskis and had everyone second-guessing whether they'd take the blue pill or the red pill. But with two relatively new filmmakers at the helm, it's a bit of a surprise such an ambitious concept ever made it to celluloid, let alone spawn such a cultural phenomenon. So, let's take a look back at how The Matrix came to be such a central part of the sci-fi film world in the first place. Odd origins. It's safe to say that The Matrix would have never come to be if not for one really crappy film. 1995's Assassins was a lazy action vehicle for Sylvester Stallone and Antonio Banderas, directed by Richard Donner in full paycheck cashing mode. But Assassins wasn't just a bad movie. It was also the Wachowskis' second completed script, which was ultimately sold to Warner Brothers. In the end, the script itself is what earned the pair a deal with Warner Brothers. The Wachowskis developed a relationship with Assassins producer Joel Silver, to whom they showed their script for The Matrix early on, and he was immediately blown away. Silver remembered, "The minute I started reading the script for The Matrix, I wanted to see it. But then the Wachowskis said, and we want to direct it." That was going to be tough. Instead of taking a gamble on a script that was obviously going to take a beefy budget to realize, Silver took a more cautious approach. He greenlit Bound, a smaller piece about lesbian lovers on the run from the mob, which the Wachowskis would write and direct. The film was then made on a tight $6 million budget and was a hit with critics. That was almost enough to convince Warner Brothers to let the newly minted directors proceed with their passion project. But there was just one problem. While everyone seemed to agree that The Matrix was a great script, nobody understood the Wachowskis' vision in the least.
There is no spoon?
So, the siblings had to improvise. Storyboarding. Producers were so confused by the premise of The Matrix that the Wachowskis turned to a pair of illustrators named Steve Skroce and Jeff Darrow to present the premise in a format others might understand. Skroce handled the storyboards, illustrating scenes in a dramatic, noir-like style with a heightened sense of motion and impact. Meanwhile, Darrow handled concept art. Now, for the first time, executives were able to visualize how this crazy script would translate to the screen. It was enough for Warner Brothers to greenlight a $60 million budget for The Matrix. And the pre-production artwork was so impressive that it was collected in a hardcover volume the year after the film's release. Casting calls. After executives hopped on board with the Wachowskis' vision, they still wanted to maintain some creative control over the project. The cast, in particular, was to be decided by Warner Brothers, even though the Wachowskis had some opinions of their own on the matter. Keanu Reeves was not the Wachowskis' first choice for the role of Neo. Instead, they had their eyes on Johnny Depp. Meanwhile, the studio wanted someone like Brad Pitt, Val Kilmer, or Will Smith, all of whom turned down the role.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back.
Neo's casting was eventually whittled down to a choice between Depp and Reeves, the latter of whom Warner Brothers preferred. Eventually, the studio won out with the casting of Reeves, and at least one star who turned it down has no regrets. Will Smith has said he's glad he turned down the role, as Reeves ended up being brilliant. Fight preparation. The Wachowskis envisioned the fight scenes in The Matrix being heavy on fast-paced, close-quarters martial arts combat, with elements of wire work. So, they decided to appeal directly to the world's foremost authority in martial arts choreography, Yuen Woo-ping, director of such classics as Drunken Master and the man who made Jackie Chan a star. Yuen wasn't interested until he read the script. Unlike Warner Brothers executives, it took Yuen almost no time to understand what they were doing, and he agreed to bring his crew of trainers to the production, where his work began months before the cameras ever started rolling. All of the movie's stars were expected to perform their own stunts, but most weren't exactly known for being on-screen fighters, so they had to spend months training with Yuen's kung fu crew and wire workers and suffered a few injuries along the way. And while it was a brutal preparation process, the ends definitely justify the means for these Matrix stars. Satisfying the suits. It's an often quoted piece of trivia that Warner Brothers initially budgeted the film at $10 million, only to have the Wachowskis use it to create a smash opening sequence, and convince the studio to fund the full $60 million they needed. But that's not exactly how it happened. According to special effects supervisor John Gaeta, the Australia-based production had been scheduled for a 90-day shoot, and it became obvious at a certain point that it was falling significantly behind. Executives were growing frustrated, so they hatched a plan to clean up the opening sequence and its visual effects and add in some temporary sound effects. Once that was done, they sent it to the studio to let them know just how production was coming along. After that, Warner Brothers immediately backed off and gave them an additional month to complete the film. It was just enough time to make all that movie magic happen, including the invention of a new photography technique to capture those slow-mo bullet shots. Gaeta was inspired by the Japanese film Akira and music video director Michel Gondry to improvise his camera techniques to create those memorable scenes. He used over 100 still cameras and 2 motion cameras to create the effect of a shot moving into extreme slow motion, while the camera appears to pan around or track the events at a normal speed. Each sequence that employed the technique was first digitally simulated, then meticulously staged with the camera array programmed to shoot in a specific sequence with precise timing. This technique became known as bullet time camera work and is a registered trademark of Warner Brothers. So not only did they get a full-on franchise out of the deal, but they also made movie history with The Matrix.
Whoa.
Thanks for watching. Click the looper icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.